account, right? And you and Lorraine live happily ever after.
Oh, you make it sound so easy. I wish I wasn't so scared.
George, there's nothing to be scared of. All it takes is a little self-confidence. You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
I recently watched Back to the Future, the first film in the series. And even though I had seen the movie before, this time as I watched it, I focused solely on George McFly and his journey from pushover to a competent man, and the effect that his transformation had on others, even his future family. There's an important lesson to learn from the film that not only will improve your life, but, like with George, has the potential to improve the lives of many others. So if that's of interest to you, then stay tuned. Without going into great detail of the story within the film, just to quickly summarize it, Marty McFly goes back in time accidentally, but as he's there, he makes some mistakes and therefore tries to fix them, and he ultimately succeeds in doing that. But not only that, he's able to fix other issues that weren't even his fault, I suppose, in the first place. And that ultimately leads to, as I said in the intro, not only a better life for his dad, but for his father's children, including Marty in the future. Now, we learned pretty early on the type of person that George McFly is before we even officially see him. The principal saying to Marty, "You're a slacker. You remind me of your father. When he attended here, he was a slacker too. You're just like him. No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley." Now, you could argue that that was a bit harsh, and I would have to agree, but then again, maybe that was the exact encouragement, if you will, that Marty needed to make sure he did do something with his life. And not only that, but attempt to improve the life of his father as well. Now, when we do officially meet George McFly, we see him being completely demeaned by Biff, his supervisor, as Biff is knocking on his head, is pulling his tie, and as I said, just completely demeaning him in front of his son. And that is just so disrespectful and unnecessary. And I mean, come on, with a last name like McFly, you better be a competent man. I mean, either that or like a fly exterminator or something, if that's what that would be called. I mean, whatever rows your boat, but in any case. George justifies not standing up to Biff, saying, "He happens to be my supervisor, and I'm just not very good at confrontation." Well, good news for George is that you can learn to be good at confrontation. And I doubt many people are naturally good at it, but there are a lot of people that are good at it now. It's because they learned how to be effective at it. Cut now to the past, and we meet young George McFly, and he's essentially exactly the same person that he is in current time in the future. He lets himself get bullied at school, at the coffee shop, and really anywhere and everywhere he goes. And he just does the old laugh and smile routine instead of standing up to the bullies in his life. Even prompting the janitor of the coffee shop and future mayor to say, "Have some respect for yourself. I mean, if you let people walk all over you now, they'll be walking all over you for the rest of your life." And within the film, that was proved to be the case, as I said. Past George and future George are basically exactly the same. At one point, Marty notices that George is writing stories, and he asks if he could read them himself or if other people be able to read them. And George says that, what if people didn't like the books? What if they thought they were no good? I don't know if I could take that kind of rejection, all that kind of stuff. Again, George is not only afraid of confrontation, he's afraid of rejection and essentially anything that might have some resistance, I suppose. In order to succeed greatly, you have to be prepared to fail greatly. If you can't do both of them, then you have a problem. Now, to be clear, being creative doesn't inherently mean you therefore are going to be a pushover or what have you. But let it be said that, as I said, it is good to be creative, but you also need to be competent. As a functioning member in society, regardless of what your occupation is or what you do with your time, you do need to set aside time to put some effort into self-improvement. One of those aspects being working on being confident and competent. So the point being, you can be creative and competent. I hope that was clear. And that's proved later in the movie. Later on in the film, as Marty implores his dad, George, to ask out Lorraine, George says that I'm not ready to ask Lorraine out. Truth be told, you'll never be ready for that kind of thing, at least from all that I've heard and experienced myself. You can practice things that lead to better self-confidence, surely, but you may never feel entirely confident to ask someone out, amongst other nerve-wracking tasks. But you just have to decide how much you want it, and you'll probably suck at whatever you're attempting at first, just as George did. But there's only one way to improve, let alone to master anything. You must first be willing to suck at it, like with the Tyson quote I quoted earlier. George goes on to prove that all it took for him was to try to act confident, even if he didn't feel like it. And he succeeded. He was able to defend Lorraine, and I think he knocked out Biff with one punch. Well, whether he did or didn't, he was able to disable him temporarily, at least. Once again, it's not to say that you won't ever fail, but you certainly won't succeed if you don't try, obviously. And after George succeeded at that, he was confident enough to continue to do tasks that took confidence to do. There's a ginger kid that stole Lorraine from George, and George ended up just pushing him away, and the old George wouldn't have done that. Once Marty does make it back to the present time and makes it back home, it's clear that things are different than when he was in the present time previously. Even Marty's brother is in a better spot in life, partially on account of his dad's competence. By the end of the film, George McFly is living up to the name, finally. He's a competent man, not lacking in self-confidence at all because of the actions he took as a kid and continued in. The decision to act confident even when he didn't feel confident. The status of his future family was on the line, whether he knew it or not, and he capitalized. And it appears to be the case that George became profitable not in spite of his creative personality, but because of it, having made a book, a graphic novel, I believe. It's not bad or wrong to be somewhat nerdy. Just don't be too nerdy, I suppose. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. Be competent, as I've hopefully stated enough times. But again, this isn't just to simply call out people that happen to be more creative. It's like, as I said, whatever occupation you're in, you have to still work on yourself and work on being competent and confident. The lesson is to acknowledge the fact that your actions made today will affect you, your future family, and therefore the world, even years from now. So defeat your demons, or they will become your family's demons too. Remember that this is all an encouragement. It's not to scare you or anything. You may think it's too late for you, but I assure you, it's not. No matter your age, begin living right today. Whatever time you choose is the right time. Not late, not early. And this idea can be applied, and probably should be more broadly as well. Your actions do affect everyone. Marty encouraged Goldie Wilson, saying he'll be mayor one day, and he went on to make that a reality. And that fact affected many people's lives by the policies the mayor went on to enact, and by the way that he, the mayor, encouraged others, as he himself was encouraged to follow his dreams. This all makes me think of the game Until Dawn. The whole idea of it is there's the butterfly effect. I don't know if this is true, but there's something to do with a butterfly flapping its wings in one state can cause a hurricane in another. Again, I don't know if that's true, but the point remains that your actions do have consequences or rewards. And in the game, you can literally cause, I think, everyone in the cast to die if you make the wrong decisions. And that's not outlandish. Assume that your every action is important and matters, because they do matter. I went on to watch a couple other people, I guess, watching this movie, and one of the people I was watching made quite the statement. He, in reference to George, said, anything he does has the potential to create something in the future. Or maybe they were talking about Marty, but regardless of who they were talking about, that's always true. I'm not dogging on the individual that said that, but that's always the case. Anything you do has the potential to create something in the future. So just always acknowledge that. Once again, act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life. A righteous man walks in integrity. His children are blessed after him. Even apart from the effect your actions have in and of themselves, you set the precedent as anyone, let alone the patriarch of your family or future family. But again, it goes for for anyone. You should aim to be someone to aspire to be. Before Marty had gone back in time and encouraged his father to be more competent, Marty's brother had basically become just as impressive as his dad. Not very impressive. He had essentially achieved what George had achieved in life at that point, at least to some extent. And even if he hadn't achieved everything, he essentially, in terms of how he acted and his character, seemed to be almost identical. But again, George should have been so competent that it was difficult to get to his level. And perhaps you just need the right motivation. I mean, George wasn't very interested in asking out Lorraine until Marty dressed up as an alien to motivate him. So, if you need some motivation, your future or current family will suffer more if you don't do the hard work now to become who you should be. So again, to drive the point home, acknowledge the potential, not only the potential, but the fact that your actions today will affect not only your future self, but your potential future family. And if you already have a family, then your actions today are going to affect them and the people in your life, people you care about, as well as strangers alike. Point being, make good choices today and become competent today. Well, I sincerely hope that helps you. I hope that it makes sense. Apply it today, apply it whenever and wherever applicable, which I'd say is all the time. Check out my previous video. It does dive a little deeper into the idea of being creative. It was about the Minecraft movie. I don't want to spoil too much about it, so just go check it out if you're interested. Also, leave suggestions for any other film or media you'd want me to make a video on, and I'll consider it. Remember to treat others the way that you want to be treated, and to love God and love your neighbor, and therefore you will be your best self. Thank you for watching, and as always, it's